Koala Awareness and Action Day. A big day is happening, courtesy of Jane Goodall's organisation Roots and Shoots, coming up in Crow's Nest at the Crow's Nest Community in RSL Hall next Saturday, 12th of November from 12:30 till 4:30. You'll hear from experts about our local koalas and how you can be involved in conserving them, because according to my next guest, they are endangered. And in fact, within 25 years, which is not all that long, could well be extinct. Mick has called in from Crow's Nest saying he deems that unlikely, given that koalas in his patch have been mating like crazy for the past 3 weeks, apparently, going at it like rabbits. And I think Mick is just saying that they have been active and they haven't needed to turn the television on for their entertainment. Mick, thank you very much. But to get the full word on it, Daniel Reid is one of the speakers at the Koala Awareness and Action Day. And I caught up with him yesterday to ask him how dire the prospects are for the koala right now.
Yeah, so the conservation of koalas so moved from vulnerable to endangered only in February of this year. So I guess, February 2022, the status of the koala was changed from vulnerable to endangered. So vulnerability is looking at, an animal or plant species has become endangered due to some changes within its environment. So for the koala, I guess vulnerability, the main cause is habitat loss. So losing their trees, their habitat, and their food source. Endangered, we look at, a plant or animal species which is being considered to be facing extremely high risk of extinction. So vulnerability, you're looking at, things that the animal needs is being removed at a certain rate that's causing that animal to become vulnerable or less likely to, reproduce and keep the population going. And then endangered, we're now looking at things with vulnerability, what changes should have happened then may not have happened. And now we're starting to look at, the animal's becoming endangered and there's now a high risk of that animal becoming extinct in the wild, which is now being forecast for about 2050. They're predicting the eastern koala, which is the Queensland, New South Wales and ACT koala, to be forecast for extinction by 2050.
Gosh.
So that's only about 28 years away, David.
Which is not long. I think that would horrify people, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I'm just curious: are there boundaries in terms of where the species is and isn't endangered, or is that pretty much all over Australia, or are some states worse than others? Or?
Yeah, that's a really good question, David, and we will go through this definitely at the workshop that we have, but. I guess what we're looking at is, so that going from that vulnerability to endangered is the eastern koala. So they're primarily the populations in Queensland, New South Wales and the Australian Capital Territory. Then you have Victorian koalas. So Victorian koalas aren't facing a lot of the same threats as the eastern koalas. There are some threats with the Victorian koalas as maybe a result of climate change, global warming, increased bushfires and stuff like that on their habitat. Some habitat loss in some areas, but the Victorian koalas, they have seen in some areas population increases, and as a result, they're actually overbrowsing some of their habitat and killing off a lot of the vegetation due to a high population. So I guess, in saying that, the Victorian koala has, different threats associated with, its population and, population increases and declines in certain areas. So overall, all over Australia, the koala does face different threats in different states as well.
Daniel, has it been a slow or even quick, but a gradual decline, or is this a fairly recent development that we've perhaps become, or our local governments or whatever layer of government hasn't stepped up? Have we become negligent in terms of things like what we allow in terms of land clearing when we're expanding to build new suburbs and subdivisions and that sort of thing? Or have we been negligent in what we allow in terms of logging of forests and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think, again, another really good question. I think, like, if you do look at population decline over the states, you I guess maybe compare that to, urban development, and as a result, of urban sprawl, you would have loss of habitat. I guess to sort of map that, there is looking at a definite link between habitat loss and koala populations in decline. I guess one thing to sort of take away is looking at that vulnerable to endangered. That sort of happened in a 10-year period, so that's not a very long period to happen. I guess some of maybe the koala going into endanger could have been a result of potentially climate change as well. So recently, in the last couple of years, we've had some pretty big bushfires across parts of Australia as well. We've all seen those images of the koalas drinking from the firefighters' water bottles, and people running in and trying to get these koalas out of these burnt bushland areas. That definitely would have had not a good a decline on the populations of koalas in these areas, and obviously would have lost the animal itself, but then also losing such large broad-scale areas of habitat as well, as part of those bushfires. I guess looking at governments, probably don't know too much about it, but I mean there can always be improvements with legislation and policy and regulations, particularly looking at our tree clearing laws and I guess what gets put on for development, and then looking at offset requirements and stuff like that. I think there's really great teams out there who are really trying to do their best to ensure that there are, we are trying to get really good tree clearing laws, and we are trying to not just preserve the animal itself, but also the habitat and everything that else comes along with koala habitat as well. It's not just the koalas primarily. It's a whole ecosystem as well, and they're only one part of it. And it's really important for us to, as much as we focus on the koala, but also focus on those other animals in that ecosystem as well.
Because surely, if the koala is endangered, then surely other animals that inhabit the same forests, and I guess I'm thinking of, wombats or, any other animals that live in the same bushland areas, are they all declining in the same numbers, or are koalas suffering particularly badly for whatever reason?
I think, it's definitely really hard to, make comment on all other animals in a woodland forest where the koalas live. Just obviously I don't have data or anything on that kind of information, but definitely when you do start to see large broad-scale areas of tree clearing occurring, and if you start to lose wildlife corridors, maybe connectivity to other areas, say national parks or state protected forests, where these developments have just been placed, then you start to lose that connectivity. So koalas start to, or most animals within that environment, will start to sort of, become trapped in a way, or will sort of live in a smaller home range. So their home ranges start to decline. Once we start to see maybe a decline in home ranges, and these animals aren't connecting to other areas or other home ranges, that's when you might start to see animals not breeding as much in certain areas, and then you start to lose, that diversity across that area as well. So that's one thing I'll definitely be talking about at the workshop. We'll be looking at, particularly with crow's nest, with the area that we're focusing in on at the moment, looking at, the connectivity within the area to where these koalas have been sighted. So there's people out there, Land for Wildlife. They're doing lots of fantastic work. You can nominate to have your property for Land for Wildlife, which means that, there's, a bit of a requirement for you to maintain a really nice, sort of ecosystem or habitat for wildlife on your property. And as a result of that, you may start to find that where these developments are starting to pop up in different areas, let's just say example would be Crow's Nest, where we're going to be, there may already be some areas that landholders have protected for wildlife. And we might start to see a bit of a pattern where we're starting to see these, natural areas being connected up to these landholder properties, and we're starting to see a really nice connectivity around the local area.
So, Roots and Shoots environmental scientist Daniel Reid talking about the endangered koala, their threats and opportunities to get involved with land for wildlife. And that's what this day that's coming up next Saturday in Crow's Nest is all about. The Koala Awareness and Action Day happening at the Crow's Nest Community Hall next Saturday, November 12th, 12:30 through to 4:30. It's put on by Dr. Jane Goodall's Roots and Shoots program. They're doing that in partnership with local environmental groups. It is free, and it's your chance to come along and learn how you can help out your local population of koalas. Daniel Reid will be speaking. Also, Kiara Hill, who's a experienced wildlife veterinary nurse and carer. She'll be explaining how to recognise a sick or injured koala and who to contact should you come across one. Also, Linda Barnes, president of Queensland Koala Crusaders. She'll be providing information about recording koala sightings and actions you can take to help keep our koala populations safe. Plus, there'll be great displays, prizes to be won. Everyone who participates will take home a free plant while stocks last. So if you want more information, check out the website or just do a search for Koala Awareness and Action Day, Jane Goodall's Roots and Shoots. News time, it's 8 o'clock.